Welcome to Yoga TX. My name is Savannah, and today we're going to do a hip-centric flow. So we're going to do some opening, some stabilizing, balance out those hips, and just kind of explore the relationship between our low back and hips and how they might treat each other a little bit more kindly when they each know their role and what they're supposed to do. If you're interested in these types of videos and would prefer watching yoga videos without ads, know that we've got a really fun project called Yoga Vito. We're building a little yoga community to release exclusive content out to. Definitely leave us requests because this is geared towards you, so we want to know what you want and how we can best serve you throughout that little subscription-based service that we are creating. That being said, go ahead and grab a block or something to give you feedback. So a physical book works out well. Book or block, anything square shaped and about yay wide will work out well. And we're actually going to start on our hands and knees today. Now, I did mention hips and low back relationship, so we are going to explore that first thing. So once you come onto your hands and knees, we'll grab the block or the book, whatever you chose today, and we're going to place that right on our low back. And I'm going to use the block lengthwise. So there's one edge of the block on the back of my hips and one edge of the block. It's in my middle back because I'm really short, but it'll probably be more so in your low back. And then once you feel the block there, notice if there's a gap between your low back and the block when you're resting here. And if there's a gap between your low back and the block, notice how you could press down through the tops of your shins and feel that flushness between your low back and the block now. So if someone placed a plate right on top of here, it would be pretty sturdy. You might even feel your low abdominal muscles hugging up and in to support that lift of the low back. And here's where things get interesting. We're going to slide the left foot to the back of the mat. And when you slide the left foot to the back of the mat, check in. Can you still keep that flushness of your low back and the block? What tends to happen for people when we lift that back leg up, there goes that space between the block. What we're going to try to do is keep that low back lifted, low belly lifted up, and just flex your left toes off the mat. Actively press out through your left heel and start to bend your left knee. This is where you should feel your hamstring and your hips engage. Without creating that space between the block and your low back, gently press your foot up. Pause for 3 breaths in, 3 breaths out. Check in with your chin. How could you draw it in and elevate the back of your head? Next breath out, lower your left shin down to the ground. We'll do the same thing with the right leg. Draw the low back up into the block. Low belly comes up towards the spine to support that lift. And we'll step right leg towards the back of the mat. So first we're just checking out, can we control our movement here? When you're here, you might already notice, got to lift up, hug in. Flex the right toes off the ground. Notice your right glute. Is it turned on? We want that leg to be turned on anytime our hip is in extension. Start to bend your right knee. It doesn't have to be as much as you can, just as much as you can control. And then gently press up into that right foot as if you're lifting it up towards the ceiling without creating that space between the block and the low back. 3 breaths here. Lower the top of your right shin. Set your block to the side. So we found our glutes, we found our hamstrings. Those are the 2 muscles that are going to help us extend our hips. We'll step our right foot forward and come to this position that looks like we have a 90-degree angle underneath our front knee and a 90-degree angle with our back knee. When you're here, make sure that back foot, top of the foot is on the ground. You'll notice when you press down through that shin, it allows your hips to orient themselves where the glute can be turned on. When you feel that left glute turn on, take a breath in, left arm reaches up. Press down through that left knee, reach up through the left fingertips, and on your next breath out, we're going to take a lean over towards the right. Now this looks like a side bend, like you might feel it through the side of the body, but if you have that glute nice and active, you'll actually feel it a little bit more through the front of your quad, the front of your big thigh muscle on the left side. Pause here for 2 more breaths. Really reach for length throughout the side body and the front body. And then on your next breath out, lower your left hand down. Frame your right hips here. Take a deep breath in, press down through that left knee again, and see if you can start to mobilize your pelvis. So notice how my right hip can hike up, and then my left hip can hike up. And what we're looking for is to find some alignment across the top of the pelvis. So move some of your pelvis and low back around, scrub some of that fuzz off of your muscles, your fascia, and then see if you can find that place where the right hip and the left hip are as aligned as they can be and be comfortable. And then we're going to take a little shifting from the hips. Right hip moves forward as the left hip moves back. Right hip moves back as the left hip moves forward. So we're working on balancing the pelvis here. Find that motion. You want it to feel almost like a slide and glide rather than a forced movement. Next time your right hip moves forward, swivel on that back knee. So your left knee is pointing behind you. Bring your right hand down towards your right forearm. Stay grounded through that left shin. On your next breath in, left arm comes alongside your ear. Pause here, relaxing your head. Breathe into the side of your ribs. Exhaling, navel back towards your spine. And then on your next inhale, level your shoulders out over your hips. Feel that levelness of your hips. See if you can hike it and lower it, align it. And then we'll start to turn our chest towards the side of our mat and take a little lunge in that right knee. I like to have my hand on my knee just so I know where I'm going. We're only going as deep into the pose as we can come out of the pose. So try that a couple times as you breathe in. Let your knee move over your ankle, lower the hips. As you exhale, actively draw your navel up towards your spine. Use those inner hip muscles to lift yourself out of the pose. And we'll try that one more time. And now that you can move a little bit lower down, bring your right hand down to the ground. Reach up through your left fingertips. Feel that rotation in your rib cage so your heart starts to point forward or reach up. And then on your next breath out, lower your hands down. You can walk them up your leg or press yourself actively up. We'll turn right knee down towards the ground and just swivel to face the other side. Left foot comes forward, right shin pressing down into the ground, top of the foot pressing down into the ground. Make sure when you feel that press down, you're like, ooh, right glute is turned on. That does most of the opening for the front of the hip for you. If that glute isn't turned on, we end up just extending our low back and missing that really nice opening stretch. So on your next breath in, down through the right knee, up through the right arm. As you exhale, lean over towards the left. Again, looks like we're stretching this. We're actually lengthening the front of our thigh here. Pause with that for a breath in and a long breath out. A little bit more press down through the top of the right shin. And then slowly lift back up as you breathe in. As you exhale, lower your right hand down to your right hip and start to find that movement. Right hip shifts up, left hip shifts up. Now, some of us, we just come into a pose and we don't even consider how we're positioning our pelvis. The position of our pelvis really is the biggest indicator in how our hips are functioning and how our low back is feeling. So once you get a little bit of that side to side hiking up, hiking down, then we're going to find that glide and slide. One hip shifts forward, and then it shifts back. Use your hands as feedback. So many times our body is doing something and we don't even know what our body is doing. For example, I'm noticing when my left hip draws back, it's also hiking up. And then level the hips out, side to side, front to back. Turn on your right knee. So go ahead and swivel your right knee behind you. Turn your rib cage to the side of the mat and we'll ground left forearm down on left thigh. Stay rooted through that right knee as you breathe in. Right arm comes alongside your ear. Notice that connection to those deep hip flexors as you stretch your arms over your ear, your right arm over your right ear. What do you feel there? Pause for 2 breaths in, 2 breaths out. Just be curious. Next breath in. Lift back up. You'll find that lunge. So maybe you hold your hands at your hips or rest your left hand at your left knee. We're going to gently move into that lunge. See if you can press yourself out of there. So remember, hip opening, hip stabilizing. We want to be balanced in our efforts. Something you might also notice is, how about that arch in your left foot? Could you keep it lifted and active? We'll take that 2 more rounds, coming into that stretch, that dropping down of the hips as you breathe in. Exhale, draw your navel up, hug your inner thighs together as you lift up. Next time we come down into that position that you can hold, you can be in control of, lower your left hand down, reach your right arm up. Feel that rotation through the rib cage. Take a deep breath in, right arm might come alongside right ear. One more breath. And lowering your hands down. Walk your hands in front of your right knee. Lower your left knee down. We'll plant left hand on the outside of left knee. You might use a block to lift the ground up for you if that seems more stabilizing in your pose. We'll press down through that left shin. Left foot is not tucked. Top of the shin, top of the foot is pressing down. Right leg extends out to the side. Check in with that knife edge of your right foot, pinky side. Can you roll it down to the ground? Find the position of your right hand, maybe turning it out a bit. Feel stable in your left shoulder. I always tell my students, show me your armpits. Roll that shoulder blade onto the rib cage. Breathe in, right arm reaches up. On your next breath out, start to lift up through your right leg. Bring your right hand down to your right hip. Remember when we had that block on our back and we want to extend through our hip, not our low back? Bend your right knee. Your left hip might already be screaming stability right now. That's okay. Can you push your right foot back without increasing the arch in your low back? So just pure hip extension. One more breath in. Lower your right foot down. Reach your right arm alongside your right ear. If you want a little bit more stretch, you might even press your hips forward. Stretch your chest back. On your next breath out, right hand to right shin, ankle, or floor. Let your hips sink back as you reach over. As you breathe in, right arm alongside right ear, press your hips forward. Maybe you want some of that chest opening. Remember, it's all connected. Exhale, lower the hips back towards your left heel. Right hand towards the right ankle, shin, or ground. We'll take that 2 more rounds. And lower your hands in front of your left knee. If you use that block underneath your hand, shift it over towards the right. Top of the right foot presses down in the ground. Left foot steps out to the side. Seal that pinky edge of your left foot down to the ground. Look at your arch. See it lifted. Take a breath in. Left arm extends over your ear. On your next breath out, lean into your right hand. Lift your left heel up. And then flex your left toe off the ground. This can be enough. Stay here if your right hip is already working overtime. If you want to explore a little bit more, give yourself a little bend in your left knee. Without arching the low back, press your left heel back. 2 more breaths. Maybe your left hand rests on your left hip. And then breathing in, extend your left leg back out to modified side plank. Left arm scoops over your left ear. We'll take an exhale. Hips move back to the right heel. Left hand to left ankle, shin, or the ground nearby. Breathe in. Chest opens up. Hips press forward. Maybe you lean back a bit. Bend the elbow if it feels right. Exhaling to move back into this really interesting Inner thighs stretch. There's a lot going on there. It works for the low back, the hips, the inner thighs. One more round. Then lift straight back up into your side plank. As you exhale, bend your left knee, plant your left knee down to the ground, hands come down. We're gonna come to that 90-90 lunge again. So as you have your right foot planted and left toe untucked, top of the shin on the mat, take a breath in, reach your arms straight up. As you exhale, then we'll tuck that left toe, lift up to just a hover. Bring your hands down to your hips. Now, the reason we're lifting up to a hover is we want that glute on, and the second we start to straighten that leg, look what happens to the low back. It stops being about the extension of the hip, and it turns into extension of the spine. So coming down to that hovered place, take a breath in, arms are still lifted. On your next breath out, right hand comes down to your right hip. Turn your ribs to the right, reach your left hand forward. Invite that right shoulder to snuggle a little closer toward your spine. Left glute is turned on for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll spiral the arms. Left heel comes down. Left arm comes behind you. Right arm reaches forward. Next breath in, can you move the pelvis? So feel those two tops of your hip points. Can you shift them and feel that spot where they're aligned? Take a breath in, right arm reaches up, left arm comes down. Feel that lift from the side of the rib cage, up and over the ear. And spiral the hands back down towards the floor. Lift up your back heel, step your right foot back. Lower your knees, lower your chest. On your next inhale, legs lift up, arms reach out wide. Pause for another breath. Exhale, hands come down. Nice. Lift your chest up, step the left foot forward this time. Reach your arms straight forward and up. Untuck your back toe, press down through the right shin. Pause here for a moment, gather the breath. From your arms lifting over your head, start to tuck that back right toe. Take a breath in. On your exhale, lift up through the right knee. Come into that bent knee position where that right thigh is elongated, right glute is turned on. One more breath here. And on your next exhale, left hand comes down to your left hip. Reach your right hand forward and turn your chest to the left. Invite your left shoulder back closer towards your spine and find that connection. Opposite glute to opposite shoulder engages. Next breath in, spiral your arms open. Right arm reaches back. Left hand reaches forward. We're going to seal that back heel down for warrior 2. Before we move from here, notice if that right hip is lifted or if you can play with the pelvis and find what feels aligned for you. Next inhale, right arm comes down, left arm lifts up. Lift from the side of the rib cage up. And after this exhale, spiral your hands down to the ground. Start to lift up through that back heel. We'll step left foot back, take a downward facing dog, dialing your fingers out towards the top corners of the mat, softening your knees so you can play with the position of your pelvis. As you tilt your pelvis over to one side, can you feel that connection from the side of your body? That's your lat you're feeling from the top of your back hip up towards the right shoulder or the left shoulder, depending which way your hips are tilting. And then slowly bring your knees back down to the ground. Take a breath in, pressing down through the shins, reaching forward through the chest. And as you exhale, lower your forearms, lower the hips back. Pause here for a couple breaths.
And as the body slows down and the breath follows, start to become more aware of how the hips and the low back feel right now. And then slowly come back up. We're going to come to standing just to see how it feels to stand in our body. So take a couple walks from the top to the back of your mat. Sometimes what I notice after a practice like this is I can actually feel my glutes extending my hips forward when I'm walking. You want your glutes to turn on when you're walking. Notice how it feels, and if it feels any different, I want to know how it feels different so that I can help you again. Once you feel nice and rooted back into your body, go ahead and just take a fresh breath in, reach your arms up. Connect your palms, lower your thumbs to your chest. Take one more breath. Namaste, friends. It's been a pleasure sharing this practice with you. It's something that's really helped my hips, so I hope that it does the same for you. Let me know how it works, and if you're interested in catching up with me, I'm on Instagram at Savannah. Yeah, that's it. Thank you again.